After 5 films and more than 40 years, the Indiana Jones franchise came to a close with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in 2023. Now that we have all the movies, the debate can begin as to which indie movie stands above all the rest, which is the worst in the franchise, and which are just in the middle. Let's rank all 5 Indiana Jones movies from worst to best. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, like this video if you enjoy it. If you want more content about Indiana Jones, Star Wars, The Walking Dead, entertainment, and video games, subscribe to our channel, head to our website, strangeawesomegames.com, for even more great content. Kicking us off at number 5 is the 4th film in the franchise, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I like this movie, I really do. It's a fun entry in the Indiana Jones story, and there are several great elements to it. However, there are some things that result in it getting the bottom spot on our list. First, the Mutt Williams story felt forced and shoehorned in. Shia LaBeouf's performance, while fine, was definitely not my favorite part of the movie, and as we know, the scene where he's swinging on the vines is far from the best thing Spielberg has ever put on screen. I don't hate the fridge scene, but I definitely get why other people don't like it. Harrison Ford stated repeatedly, while filming for this movie and afterward, that he wanted more references to Indy's age in the movie, as he wanted to take on the stigma about growing older in America. Not enough of that was put in my opinion, and what was sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. But hearing Indiana Jones say somebody's going to get hurt like the worried dad was pretty great. Seeing Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood on screen again was amazing, and the first 2 acts of Crystal Skull are actually a pretty enjoyable watch. The 3rd act, though, requires a lot of suspension of disbelief and just doesn't have the harder character of the first 2 acts. This one was really hard for me to decide. Numbers 4 and 3 on the list are pretty close for me, but it comes down to the quality of the story and the contribution of the character. Temple of Doom just doesn't have as much of either, so it falls to number 4 on the list. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom has its problems and hasn't aged well in some regards, but it's still a really great adventure movie and a fun ride. I think a movie can both have things that age poorly and deserve to be mentioned, and still be fun to watch 40 years later, all at the same time. Temple of Doom moves really fast. In fact, it almost moves too fast. Spielberg had to insert extra scenes just to slow the pace down and allow the audience to process what was happening. Once they get to the temple, about halfway through the movie, it's a pretty non-stop action ride from there until the climactic scene on the bridge. Short Round is my favorite sidekick character in the entire franchise, and he adds so much humor and character to the film. Willie Scott is probably my least favorite love interest in the series, though, and she's pretty much every annoying damsel in distress stereotype rolled into one. Mola Ram is one of the best villains in the entire series, and there are several scenes that stand out in Temple of Doom, with the minecart chase and the bridge scene leading the way. Ultimately, though, Temple of Doom makes me feel connected to Indy less than the top 3 films. That's why it's here. Alright, up next is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and it's probably the most divisive movie in the entire franchise, but I like Dial of Destiny. It's certainly not perfect, it has its flaws, but it's also a meaningful story about age and finding your place in the world, even when the world isn't made just for you anymore. Some of the people who have issues with Dial of Destiny have a point, as there are valid story issues with the movie. But those who just scream woke because there's a woman in the movie and because of 70-something Jones, played by 80-year-old Harrison Ford, by the way, isn't still kicking ass left and right, lose me pretty fast. I feel like that falls into the category of saying whatever I don't like is woke, and completely ignores the fact that Ford wanted Indy's age to be a central issue of the film. Dial of Destiny's action sequences vary in effectiveness and excitement, but this film relies on character development more than any other in the franchise to make up for that. In 1969, Indy's lost. He's lost everything he cares about in the world, and at one point feels like he actually belongs in history rather than in the time he's in. The contrast between Voller and Indy regarding how they deal with feeling that the world has passed them by is a really great story element. Teddy's a clear nod to Short Round, and that's only one of the many callbacks to previous entries throughout the film. My favorite, though, is probably Indy's whip to a gunfight scene in Tangier, which is flipping the famous swordsman scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark on its head. Another interesting way of seeing the sidekicks in the last 2 films is to look at them as newer representations of Indiana Jones himself. Mutt is what Indiana Jones might have been if he had come of age in the 1950s, and Helena Shaw is possibly what an Indiana Jones who grew up in the turbulent 60s might have been. Overall, though, it's a pretty fitting end to a character and franchise, and the fact that Indiana Jones himself is the treasure being saved in the film made me pretty happy with the experience. Number 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And let's be honest, the top 2 indie films stand pretty far above the rest, and you really can't go wrong either way. After Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom divided critics and fans in 1984, the gang all got back together for what was thought to be the final entry in 1989 with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Last Crusade does what a great sequel should do. It provides enough familiarity to what fans love about the franchise in the first place, while still telling a brand new story that advances the characters and lore. With the return of the Nazis as the central villain and the story of racing against them for a religious relic that could turn the tide in the struggle against fascism, fans of Raiders of the Lost Ark are going to feel right at home here. But it isn't a copy or formula of the first movie. The addition of the legendary Sean Connery as Indy's father adds a whole new element to the story. The pursuit's not just for the Grail, but for the relationship between father and son. This is best exemplified by a scene late in the movie where Indy's father convinces him to give up the Grail, calling him Indiana for the first time instead of Junior, which is a show of respect and love and an indication that they had each found the real prize, which never was the Cup of Christ. On top of the story, the action in Last Crusade is top tier. The motorcycle chase and airplane scenes are both great, but the fight in the desert with Indy taking on the German army, tank and all, is the highlight of the movie for me. Number one is the original and the best, in my opinion, Raiders of the Lost Ark. From the iconic opening sequence to the classic scenes in the Well Souls, Marion's Bar, and the Cairo Marketplace, Raiders of the Lost Ark remains a quintessential action movie more than 40 years after it was released. For me, it beats out all the others for a few reasons. First, most of the iconic scenes and shots from the franchise can be found in Raiders. From Indy taking the idol in the first 15 minutes to the swordsman in the marketplace, so many of the moments we all remember and love about Indiana Jones come from this film. Renee Belloc is also the best villain in the franchise and is Indy's intellectual and archaeological equal. On top of that, Marion Ravenwood has always been Indy's best love interest, and her portrayal by Karen Allen in Raiders is still the best female lead performance in the entire series, in my opinion. There's just so many moments from Raiders that I love, from the first time we see the Ark to the map room and so many more. But I always think of the truck chase sequence as just classic Indiana Jones. For so many movies have tried to emulate Raiders, and so many have fallen short of what made the original great. That's why this is number one on our list. Well, what do you think? Which Indiana Jones movie gets your top spot? Let us know in comments. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more on Indiana Jones, The Walking Dead, Star Wars, and a lot more. While you're at it, head to our website at strangely.awesomegames.com. And if you want even more content just like this, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/strangelyawesome. Have a great day, everybody.